Hello, welcome back to the channel. Now, today's video is all about chainsawing. I've got a tree that come down a few weeks ago. I've tidied up most of it, but today I'm going to block it up for firewood. Stay tuned. Yeah, so thanks for tuning in and join me again today on the video. Like I said before, today's video is all about chainsawing and blocking up this tree that come down for firewood. Now the tree, when it come over, it took out a few willow trees as well, some silver birch. So I've already taken them down and I've blocked them up. Plus I've delimbed this tree. There's a little bit of brass still left in that willow tree, just down there. So what we do is we delimb that, we'll block that up as well at the same time. So when I say delimbed, it means taking all the branches off, all the small bits. So basically all I'm left now is the log. So yeah, so I thought what better opportunities to show you guys how I go about chainsawing and turning this tree into firewood. First thing, we'll check out what's in my bag. So before we get started, I'll just show you what I got in my kit bag. So chainsawing can be very dangerous if not done properly. So I got ear protection and eye protection on my hard hat. So obviously a little bit wobbly, I'm on the log at the moment. I got my chaps or safety trousers. So the idea behind these is that it's got a very fine woven material inside the chaps, and if the chainsaw hits your leg, the chain will get wrapped up in the material and stop. That's the idea. So you can still get injured even doing that, so still got to be careful even wearing these. These big old clumpy safety boots, steel toe cap, first aid kit. But also with the first aid kit I carry a tourniquet and field dressing, especially if you're out in the woods in the middle of nowhere. It's a good idea to carry these because chainsaws can bite. Where are they? And my safety gloves. There's a few other bits and bobs in there, a few tools, spanners, chainsaw tools and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's my safety kit basically, and that goes with me anytime I'm doing chainsawing. So I'm going to get my safety kit on, fuel up the chainsaw, and then we'll get going. The fuel that goes in the chainsaw is petrol. So I got 5 litres of petrol there, but it needs oil in it, 2-stroke oil. So a little bit of 2-stroke oil, that's 100 millilitres. So 100 millilitres for one 5-litre jerry can. So just tip that in. We'll give that a bit of a shake down before putting it up. So I always write on there then mix, so we know then that's a mixed fuel for the chainsaws. But that mix will also be used for the trimmers as well, we use on site. I think the blower as well we use. So another thing you'll need for the chainsaw is chain oil as well. Keep the chain nice and lubricated. Right, the chainsaw we're using is just Husqvarna 365. It's pretty heavy chainsaw really, but it makes light work of the firewood. Right, petrol compartment here at the back. I like to use one of these, saves a bit of spillage. Right, so that's petrol's all in here now, all mixed up with the oil. I'll just put this in the chainsaw. Just tighten that back up. And then the oil is on the same side, but on the front. Yeah, she's empty. What I like to do is when I'm filling up with fuel is always check the oil and top up the oil at the same time. Just put that in. That's her ready to go. before we get the chainsaw fired up, first thing you've got to consider is your working environment. So once you've got your PPE on, personal protective equipment, the hard hat, you don't have to wear the hard hat and visor, you could just wear eye protection, ear protection, also your gloves, chaps, boots. Then it's your surrounding area. So the last thing you want to do is trip over anything with a chainsaw in your hand going flat out, isn't it? Yeah, it's a safety issue. So make sure your working area is clean, free of debris, free of branches, anything you can trip over, and also make sure there's no one else around you, isn't it? Or give them plenty of warning. So be aware if anybody's working in the area, if they're behind you, to the side. If you've got a dog, make sure the dog is not around your feet. So that's the things to consider before you even fire up the chainsaw and get cutting. So I've done that. I've cleared a bit of brush, chucked it over in the pile over there. So the next thing I want to do now is attack this willow tree. We'll come down with this pine and just take all the brush off the top. So when I say brush, I just mean all the small branches. So yeah, all the brush I just cut off, cut into small pieces, pile it up under a tree, and then that'll rot down eventually. But in the meantime, it's a good habitat for nesting birds, hedgehogs. I've got a few pheasants nesting in brush piles, so yeah, it's good for wildlife as well. And the rest of the wood, like I say, 2 inches and over, that we blocked up to go in the wood burners. So we're ready to go. Next job, let's fire up the chainsaw. So this old Husky chainsaw, it's got an on-off switch here. Make sure it's on the on position. There's no trigger lock. Some of them will have a trigger lock where you lock the trigger in the on position. We'll pull out the choke and then pull the start cord. When you hear the rev, you can push the choke back in and then she'll start up. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. So if you look on this side of the saw, where the handle is, you've got this extra wide piece here. You can rest your knee or foot on there while you pull the start cord, and there, hopefully she'll start first time.
Some time later.
So I'm just going to start taking these 4 limbs off, or the brash, and then I'll get back to you. When the timber's on the floor, especially when a tree's been blown over, it could be lying awkwardly, there's branches intermingling. So you've got to be careful when you're cutting the brash off. If there's certain pressures on the wood, there could be weight on it, there could be balancing, you could cut a piece and a large piece will roll down. So yeah, just take your time. And when it's on the floor, you don't want to be hitting that chain on the floor. Yeah, you'll blunt it pretty quick. So what I do is cut through the top first, and then just cut the top end into your blocks. Let's say the last thing you want to do is touch that chain with the ground. There's all sorts of stones in there, whatever, and it'll blunt the chain pretty quick. How do you know when the chain's blunt? Well, for a start, it won't cut as good. You'll find it harder and harder to cut, and it will pull to the one side when it's blunt. And also, the shavings that come off the saw when you cut in will get finer and finer the blunter it gets. So if it's a nice sharp chain, the shavings off it will be nice and chunky. Right, I'll just roll these over now. Finish off the willow, come down. finish blocking that up, and then be onto this pine tree. Let's go for it. Yeah, now I'm going to cut this, or start cutting this pine tree up. Some of the willow I haven't managed to block up because it's underneath the pine tree. So until I get out the way, I can't roll it on the one side and finish cutting it off, and finish cutting it up. I've cut it from the top, like I said, that's ready to block. Right, using the chainsaw. Now please don't take my instructions as sound. I've never had any certification for using a chainsaw, only 20 years experience. So yeah, you can get your chainsaw certificate to use a chainsaw. So don't take my word as gospel. All I can do is show you how I use a chainsaw, right? But yeah, safety is paramount, isn't it? So, chainsaw, I forgot to mention before, it's got a chain brake. So this is a safety feature. So if you are cutting away and for whatever reason it bites, that will shut it off or stop the chain. And again, if you're using a chainsaw, you want to put it down, or when you're starting it up, always have the chain brake on. It stops the chain from rotating. So if you're on the ground and you're starting the chainsaw, you don't want that chain rotating. So plus, whenever you're stopping, you want to put the chain down, put the chain brake on. Again, it's safety, isn't it? Right, so cutting the pine tree up. Now, like I said before, take my advice with a pinch of salt. Okay, I'm not officially qualified, but and you'll probably get my mate Smithy laughing at this. He's a forestry contractor, used a chainsaw since he was about 16, 17. So all I like to do, and the way I was shown 20 years ago, is to use a chain on my side. Yeah, not between the legs or by your toes, but I just stand to one side. So being right-handed, it's on my right-hand side. That way, if there is a problem, if it does flip up or cut back, I'm not in the way. And that's basically all I do, really. Other than obviously checking my surroundings, making sure everything is tickety-boo, like I said before. Because a chainsaw will bite in a few different ways. It can get pinched, especially when you're cutting up fallen trees and they're intermingled. There's different weights on them. So if the chain gets pinched, like I say, when you're cutting, it can come back on you. It can go forward, or if you catch the tip of the chain, it can flip up. So yeah, if you're not in the way of that chain, stand to one side, then hopefully you're not in any danger. But even the best professionals, boys with a lot of experience, they've been bitten by a chainsaw. So always take care. And just remember, I'm not qualified to use a chainsaw as such, but all I've got is my experience. Right, let's get cutting.
Groovy.
that's that all blocked up, as you can see. So that's the top half of the pine tree blocked. The rest of the willow, bits of hazel, that's all blocked up. All the branches off. So the only thing I've got left now is just a little bit of willow underneath. I've already cut it. So once I've cut this pine tree from on top, I've blocked up as well. The only thing I've got to watch now of this last remaining piece of the pine tree was either the bottom end, so it's the bigger end, more weight. The root ball's still on the end, so I've got to watch the weight. Sometimes they do flip back up, so it's another thing you've got to watch when you're cutting timber. If there's any weight on one end, it will pinch the saw. So if there's weight pushing down on one end, cut from the top. If the weight is pushing on the other end and it's bowing the branch upwards or tree upwards, then you want to undercut, cut from underneath. So yeah, there's a couple of things you've got to watch out for on that, because they will pinch the saw otherwise. So yeah, I'm going to refuel the saw now and have a go with this last piece. Now while I was cutting up the top of that pine tree, come across some fatwood. Now this is where there's an offshoot or branch, especially in the winter when the sap falls, it collects around these little offshoots. It's a very knotty area. So what it is just a high volume of sap in that particular piece of wood. Yeah, you can find this at the base of the tree as well, especially in an old tree, because obviously as it dies the sap will drop. But bushcrafters, they love this sort of stuff. Yeah, they go crazy over it. They're almost obsessed by it. So it's very good at starting fires. That's it, because of the high sap content obviously. But yeah, I'm not too fussed myself. There's other ways you can start fires. But if you do find some, yeah, shave a bit off and it will start a fire, no problem at all. saw performed well. It's still cutting. It's getting a little bit blunt now. It's starting to get harder and harder to cut through, but yeah, brilliant kit, this Husqvarna. So I'll show you a bit of saw maintenance and saw sharpening, or chain sharpening, on future videos. But for now, yeah, well done. Oh, well that's it. Job done. Cut all that tree up into blocks now, ready for firewood. I'll show you how I process that, or them blocks now into firewood, on another video. I've left a little bit on the stump with a root ball. What I'm going to do is get my little mini digger and try and upright that, and hopefully just leave it where it is. And again, I'll show that on another video when I'm doing a bit of digger work. Now there is a blessing in disguise of that tree coming down. It has opened up this area a lot. There's a lot more light in here now. So that will allow more new growth, more trees coming through, and yeah, so this will allow us now to thin out a few more little trees and clear the area and plant a few more trees. So that'll be in the future, and another video on that, I suppose. But that's it for this one. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and sure there'll be more videos in the future, so keep tuned for them. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll catch you next time. All the best. Bye for now.